Hello all, welcome to the video series on SIPI by E for Engineer. So in the last video we have seen what are the causes for signal integrity problems and how we can categorize them, and we have discussed how the signal quality on a single net will be. So in this video we will see the other three categories of SI problems. So the first being the crosstalk. So when one net carries a signal, some of this voltage and the current can pass over to an adjacent net. Even though the signal quality on the first net is perfect, some of the signal can couple over and appear as unwanted noise on the second quiet net. So, it is the capacitive and inductive coupling between two nets that provides a path for unwanted noise from one net to the other, and it is called as crosstalk. So if we see, crosstalk can occur in two different environments. One is when the interconnects are uniform transmission lines, and the other is when they are not. In the first case, the relative amount of capacitive and inductive coupling are comparable, and thus the crosstalk will be in limits. But in the second case, the inductively coupled noise increases much more than the capacitively coupled noise. This inductive coupling happens when there are discontinuities in the return path. So, for example, if we see when the signal goes through a connector and the return paths for more than one signal path are now shared by one of the pins rather than by a plane. In this scenario, there is transfer inductive coupling. And when the inductively coupled noise dominates, we usually refer to this crosstalk as switching noise or di by dt noise or ground wounds or simultaneous switching noise. This type of noise, that is SSO, is generated by the coupled inductance as we have just seen, which is called as mutual inductance. If we can see this, by understanding the nature of capacitive and inductive coupling, it is possible to optimize the physical design of a adjacent signal traces to minimize the coupling. We can minimize coupling by following these three techniques. So the first one being like spacing the traces further apart, or using a lower dielectric constant material, or reducing the interconnect length such as by using CSPs and high density interconnects. So this is on crosstalk, and now we will move to the rail collapse noise. So if we see, noise can be a disaster not only in the signals but also in the power and ground distribution networks that feed the chip. When a current through the power and ground changes, as when a chip switches its outputs or core gets switched, there will be voltage drop across the impedance of power and ground paths. This voltage drop will mean less voltage gets to the chip, which will see a decrease or collapse of the voltage between the power and ground rails. This we call as rail collapse noise. As we can see the trend in recent days, in high performance processors or in any FPGAs or in some ASICs, the trend is for lower power supply voltage and high power consumption. This means obviously higher currents will be switching in shorter amounts of time, and the amount of noise that can be tolerated will decrease. That's why as the drive voltage decreases and the current levels increase, any voltage drop associated with the rail collapse becomes a bigger and bigger problem. That's why the goal for designing the power and ground distribution network is to minimize the impedance of the PDM. So I have listed here the four techniques which help in designing a low impedance PDN, and these four of them being the closely spaced adjacent planes for the power and ground distribution with as thin a dielectric between them as possible. And the second one, like we can try to use multiple low inductance decoupling capacitors, or multiple very short and ground leads in packages, and on chip decoupling capacitors. So that is on rail collapse noise, and now we move on to EMI. So with board level clock frequencies in 100 megahertz to 500 megahertz range, the first few harmonics of these clock frequencies within the common communication bounds of TV, FM radio, cell phone, or personal communication services. So what I'm trying to say here is our clock frequencies, which are in the 100 to 500 megahertz range, these harmonics will interact with the communication services. This is a disaster, in fact. So, this means there is the very real possibility of electronic products interfering with all communication services unless their EM emissions are kept below acceptable levels. And to add further, EMI will get worse at higher frequencies. So, what all it takes for an EMI problem to rise? A source of noise is required, and a pathway to the radiator, and finally an antenna is needed. With all these three things in place, it gives an EMI problem. In addition to that, every source of signal integrity problem will be a source for EMI problem as well. Most of the voltage sources that drive radiation emissions come from the power and ground distribution networks. So, often the physical designs that contribute to low rail collapse noise will also contribute to lower emissions. In addition, the leakage of the noise from antenna can be minimized with a good shield. That's all in this video. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned.